Hello and welcome to Customer Experience Leaders Chat by Nicereply, where we talk to support professionals from all over the world and discuss what's behind their team's success. This interview is brought to you by Nicereply, an all-in-one customer satisfaction tool that helps you measure and improve the quality of your customer service. My name is Craig Stoss, and I'm here today with Jake Bartlett, Customer Success Manager at Atlassian Statuspage. Welcome, Jake.
Thanks, Craig. Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for taking the time. Jake, your area of expertise is in communication, and I'm particularly interested today in communication of new features or product changes coming between the product and engineering teams into support and success. What challenges do you see there, and how do you start to remedy those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. So working on the status page product, we're definitely all about communication. Our product helps software teams communicate with their users when they have outages or scheduled maintenance. And so you need to talk to your customers and your users when things aren't working properly. And likewise, you need to talk to your customers and users when you're changing the product and when you're releasing new features. We found some challenges early on. As the team grew internally, we were shipping things faster. We had more teams developing features, multiple product teams, and we didn't really have a system in place or any sort of cadence to sort of stay close to the product team that way. So we started doing weekly meetings, and that was the first thing we did, was just like, hey, let's meet every week and do it consistently to see what's changing, what's happening, what's coming down the pipeline, when are things going to be shipped. And that was the first thing we did. And from there, we started to put some sort of frameworks into place and some other sort of special meetings, one-off meetings when things are being shipped. So we've done quite a bit to improve that, and so far it's working.
What does the format of these meetings you have with the engineering group take? What is the output, and how do you make sure that output is the most useful to your support organization?
Yeah, so the first meeting is that weekly sort of cross-functional team meeting. So we have that's a standing meeting that we have with the product team and the marketing team. We also have our writer there. We have a representative from support and then customer success. So it's really just a bunch of different folks from different teams getting together and saying, okay, what's happening this week? What's on our minds? What's getting shipped? What's changing? Are we deprecating anything? And then, so that's a standing weekly meeting. And then from there, once we identify a change, we'll have what we call a release readiness meeting. And that's where that framework comes into place. So we have what we call a release readiness document. It's basically a template that we run through. And we basically, the output of that is really what is changing or what's being released, what's the expected release date, who's the team responsible for it, who's the feature lead, who's the product manager on that, how does it work? Are there any screenshots that we can see and sort of get a feel for how this feature or change works or what it looks like? How do you turn it off? Is it possible to turn it off? Are there any debugging resources or logging tools we can look at to troubleshoot things? And then what can go wrong? And then lastly, are there any known issues or sort of glitches around the change? So I know that was a lot, I just rambled there, but that's really the output of this release readiness doc, is capturing all those things for every single release or change.
A challenge that I've had in my career in several occasions is the difference between documentation being explaining what a feature is and why we want this feature versus how to troubleshoot the feature. Something you just said is that these docs you discuss with the engineering team include debugging techniques, what could go wrong. A challenge of that is often that involves even further discussions with like a QA department or other teams that outside that aren't engineering. How do you ensure that those debugging techniques are included and that your team is set up to be able to answer difficult customer problems right from the get-go?
Yeah, so in these release readiness meetings or support handoff meetings, whatever you want to call them, typically we'll have the product manager in there and then a couple engineers who are directly involved with building the thing. So that's usually captured right there. Oftentimes there's not logging or debugging tools that support has access to, or it might just be an engineer facing tool only. But typically we'll capture that in that meeting. And the idea here is when we have these release readiness meetings, we go in, it takes about a half hour. We blow through this template. And then after the meeting, we're good to go. The support team's good to go. The customer success team is ready to talk to customers about it. Or sometimes maybe we'll realize during that meeting, maybe the support team will ask questions or raise concerns that, okay, like maybe this isn't quite ready for prime time. Maybe we need to spend a couple more weeks buttoning things up before we actually hit the go button. So they've been extremely valuable and productive meetings.
I mean, that's a really interesting point. Having support be able to have a vote in that around, shipping something or going live. What type of kind of bar do you set, and how does that engineering react to that when you do say, we're not sure this is ready, this could impact us quite severely or be a bad customer experience?
Yeah, well, one of our values at Atlassian is don't customer. So we're pretty customer focused and customer centric, and support has a ton of empathy for the customers, and therefore when they bring those concerns to the table, it's they're heard. Our product team listens to that, so we do have the ability to say no go, like we're pumping the brakes here, and that's in a sense almost QA in itself, right? Some of these meetings sort of turn into a quality assurance sort of vibe, and sort of helps make sure we're hitting the bar and releasing something we're proud of and something that's not going to cause pain with our customers.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital, and it's great that you built that trust that support can give that vote, and that has a meaning within the team, and is trusted that you're using that veto power appropriately. Switching gears a little bit, you said earlier about support is ready to go, and I'd like to dig into that a little bit more. How do you know support's ready to go? So you have this meeting, you generate this document. What is the format that support then intakes that as far as training and getting them ramped up to be sure they are ready to go?
Yeah, that's a good question. So full disclosure, I don't work directly on our support team anymore. I moved away from support a couple of years ago and moved into a customer success role, but I partner with the support team, work very closely with them every day. From what I understand, they're capturing this release readiness doc, and then we have a global team now, so they're sharing that with the global support team and using that as a first step to the enablement of the change or the feature for the support team. So it's really looking at those screenshots of the new feature, the change, and reading through the Q&A on the readiness doc to get up to speed.
And given that you're more familiar with the customer success side, maybe the same question applies there, is how do you ensure that the success managers are prepared to have intelligent conversations with customers about a feature and be able to drive them towards their own success?
Yeah, that's a good question. From the customer success side, I really think it's more about, yes, you have to understand how the functionality of the new feature, the change works, or the deprecation, or what's happening there. But it really, from the CSM side, I think we target more of the value of why this is happening. So that's really what we bring to that meeting. We want to know why this is changing. Why are we building this thing? Why are we launching this? Why is this thing getting deprecated? What value does that bring to the customer? And then from there we can show up to meetings with customers and sort of speak to that value.
We've talked about the internal communications and making sure everyone internally is set up for success and being able to support and talk about the value. What about externally? How does this information propagate to your knowledge base or to whatever marketing materials that then become the things your customers consume and learn from?
Yeah, so externally, there are a lot of different places that might need updated when you launch a new feature or change something or deprecate something. Maybe that's your community, your knowledge base, your website. Maybe that's videos or even internal documentation. So we have a punch list that will sort of run through and say, this feature warrants updating X, Y, and Z. And so hopefully we're not, missing any of those. But once we have the internal release communication ironed out and people are ready for it, it's a whole nother project to, get the external communication under wraps. There's a lot of different things to consider there. It's, who is the audience, who is impacted, where are they sort of looking, for these things? Do you have a change log inside of your app, or is it a change log inside of your knowledge base? Updating that consistently is super important. I think it's very, very important that you have a running, list of like updates to your product that a customer can consult at any moment.
And finally, this sounds like a great process, right? The internal stuff, having that seat at the table, the veto power, having a list of all the things you might look at for external communication. Is there any tips that you might have for someone listening who wants to try to fight this battle to get that seat at the table, to enact some of these measures? Are there any things that you use to pitch this idea or get that buy-in from your leadership, cross-functional leadership team?
Yeah, I would say become friends with your product managers is a good place to start. And partner with whoever is, well, I guess the second part of that is define an owner of who's doing the external release communication piece. Maybe that's marketing, maybe that's support, maybe it's somebody in product. It's, in my opinion, somebody from a customer-facing team should be involved, or at least have their eyes on that before it goes out to customers. Because we're close to the customers, we know what they're thinking, how they might react. And I think it's super important that customer-facing teams are involved in that part of the communication. And I really think it comes down to the people, tools, and processes. And there's obviously a number of different ways you can go about handling both internal release communication and external release communication. In fact, a couple of friends from the Statuspage team have gone off and started a new product called launchnotes.io. So if this is a topic that you're interested in, I'd totally encourage you to go check out LaunchNotes. Get closer with your product team, start those weekly syncs, and then iron out the details from there.
Jake, what we just talked about is absolutely critical to providing the best possible support and success and providing value to our customers. Make sure that support has a seat at the table. Get involved with the product team. Jake, thank you so much for sharing your insights, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you all for listening to Customer Experience Leaders Chat by Nicereply with today's guest, Jake Bartlett from Atlassian Statuspage. Make sure to check out our other support interviews and more quality content at nicereply.com.